Over the years, the horror genre has evolved in a way that it keeps exploring increasingly gruesome ways of human behavior. From movies about ghosts possessing bodies to vampires feeding on blood, horror films continue to break norms and push boundaries to leave the viewers in a state of shock. Among these gruesome acts, cannibalism is probably one of the most alarming human acts that have been depicted on screen, and the mere idea of witnessing humans consume each other is enough to send a chill down most of our spines. From Cannibal Ferox to Bone Tomahawk, today we explore the 11 most shocking and goriest cannibal horror movies and tell you all about them. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Cannibal Ferox, 1981. Starting with a bang, we have Cannibal Ferox, a 1981 Italian horror film that managed to get itself banned in 31 countries due to its disturbing content. The movie follows the life of an anthropologist named Gloria Davis, who decides to explore the lands of the Amazon basin to prove that modern cannibalism is nothing but a fabricated myth. Accompanied by her brother Rudy and friend Pat, Gloria sets foot into the rainforest to find out that the Amazon holds some disturbing secrets and that she might have just unknowingly offered herself as food by venturing into these unknown territories. The movie is a classic spin on a typical cannibal movie, where city folk are concerned by the forest natives, and it's jarringly sadistic and brutal, which makes it a bit of an unsettling watch. Director Umberto Lenzi collaborated with special effects expert Giannato De Rossi to whip up some terrorizing, gory footage in the middle of a rainforest, and we have got to give him credit for achieving this with such satisfying results. Cannibal Ferox may not have made as much noise as Cannibal Holocaust, but it certainly made an impact at the international box office, and it makes for a worthy watch as one of the last decent Italian cannibal films. Raw, 2016. Directed by Julia Ducournau, Raw tells the tale of an innocent teenage girl, Justine, who unleashes her true animalistic nature over the course of the film. She starts out as a strict vegetarian who finds herself at the Saint-Exupéry Veterinary School and slowly loses herself in the school's shocking traditions and jarring tests. After she's forced to feed on a piece of raw rabbit kidney, Justine senses a primal hunger within herself. As time passes, this brilliant young girl starts mulling over her beliefs and decides to venture into uncharted territories to satiate her hunger. She finds herself turning into an entirely new person over her craving for meat and decides to embrace her cannibalistic nature. The movie is packed with sequences of body horror and artful depictions of gore that creep up on you in the most mundane sequences and leave an unsettling feeling behind as this young girl makes meals out of her victims. The movie cinematographer Ruben Impens does a wonderful job of creating a spine-tingling environment where the viewers are left guessing what's real and what's not. Slave of the Cannibal God, 1972. Originally titled La Montagna del Dio Cannibale, this Italian horror film was directed by Sergio Martino and had Ursula Andress and Stacy Keach in lead roles. The movie follows Andress's character, Susan Stevenson, as she tries to trace the disappearance of her husband, Henry, in the forests of New Guinea. As Susan travels to New Guinea with her brother Arthur, she relies on the help of Professor Edward Foster, who directs them towards the mountain Ra May. As the plot thickens, they have a hard time getting permission to explore the mountain, and Susan's crew decides to explore the nearby forests and finds themselves in the midst of a cannibal tribe. In a strange turn of events, they discover that the tribe has killed Henry, and that they are now worshipping his bones and referring to him as their cannibal god. While the bewildered Susan processes her husband's death, the tribe tries to crest her as their cannibal goddess, and she tries her best to escape their clutches. Slave of the Cannibal God certainly has an interesting premise and is packed with rituals, dense wilderness, and animalistic acts that keep the audience hooked to the screen. Bone Tomahawk, 2015. Popularly classified as a classic Western film, Bone Tomahawk was the brainchild of S. Craig Zahler, who managed to pack a punch with this genre-jumping film that has its fair share of horror moments. The movie follows the life of a small-town sheriff, Franklin Hunt, who finds himself leading a posse to find the town doctor, Samantha O'Dwyer. As the film unfolds, we learn that Samantha has been abducted by a bunch of feral savages who reside deep within the Valley of the Starving Men and practice practice cannibalism. As Franklin ventures deeper into the desert to face this clan and rescue Samantha, this Western film includes some unexpected horror elements that are bound to leave the viewers in awe. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. Crowned as the best Italian cannibal film of all time, Cannibal Holocaust can be described as a 2-hour-long cinematic experience packed with distasteful and gruesome images that exceed one's wildest imagination. The movie follows a typical horror script where a film crew ventures into the Amazon rainforest to shoot a documentary and ends up missing. When a rescue team bravely steps up to look for them, they stumble across the film that was left behind by these missing filmmakers who have been killed one by one. As the film takes place in 2 halves, we follow the rescue team's attempts to unravel the mystery through the uncovered footage. In this footage, we see instances where the crew poked fun at the natives and tortured them in their endeavors to create a sensational documentary. But this plan horribly backfires when the natives fight back. Cannibal Holocaust can also be considered as social commentary on the exploitation of the natives by the so-called civilized population, at least until the cannibal tribes fight back and make a decent dinner out of these filmmakers. This movie takes the cake for depicting cannibalism in the most grotesque manners possible, and Deodato's decision to shoot it in a found footage technique is precisely the kind of frosting that was needed on top. The Devil's Rejects, 2005. Created by Rob Zombie as a sequel to the 2003 film House of a Thousand Corpses, this movie has garnered quite a cult following over the years. It follows the psychopathic Firefly family that has been held responsible for over 75 homicides over the last few years, while Sheriff John Wydell tries to get a hold of them. As the movie progresses, we witness this crazed family in action as they abduct their victims and mercilessly kill them while also being on the run from the police. When their rural home was raided by the police, 2 members of the clan named Otis and Baby rushed from the scene and finally reunited with Baby's father, Captain Spaulding, at an isolated desert motel. While Captain Spaulding expresses his desire to continue with their murder spree and sadistically torture as many of their victims as possible, things take a tense turn as the movie builds up to its finale where the town sheriff closes in on them. The Green Inferno, 2013. While cannibal movies have mostly taken the form of deadly viruses or zombie apocalypses in recent times, Eli Roth sought inspiration from the Italian cannibal films of the 80s and 90s to create the Green Inferno in 2013. He hoped to reintroduce this subgenre to the younger audience and further add a political element to the mix. This movie follows a group of environmental activists as they travel to the Amazon rainforest and protest against the destruction of ancient tribal land by a logging company. As they make their way out of the forests in a plane, they end up in a plane crash and find themselves cornered by a native tribe. While these college kids seem to have their hearts in the right place, they end up being victims of the tribe's cannibalistic practices in a jarring twist of events. The irony of them setting out to protest for the natives' benefits while ending up as their dinner is not lost on the audience, making the Green Inferno an intriguing and slightly ridiculous watch. As far as cannibal horror goes, this movie is packed with plenty of gore and carnage and is a well-executed modern-day twist on the much-loved Italian cannibal horror genre. Ravenous, 1999. Released in 1999, Ravenous can be best described as a crossover between the horror genre and Western genre with a tinge of comedy. It has gained a massive cult following over the years, and Guy Pearce does a wonderful job of playing an army captain named Boyd who fought in the Mexican-American War in the 1840s. As Boyd tells his story, we learn that he was posted at a remote snowbound military outpost where he met a strange half-dead man Cohoon. As the two become acquainted, the latter confides to Boyd and tells him about the times he had to consume human flesh to make it through the dreary winters. Cohoon seemingly started by devouring the flesh of the oxen, horses, and dogs, but as resources became scarce and starvation became more apparent, he resorted to feeding on his belts and shoes before feeding on other humans. The movie becomes increasingly darker as we learn more and more about Cohoon. Against an eerie yet beautiful backdrop, and filmmaker Antonia Bird deserves a round of applause for capturing such a gritty tale with such delicacy. The movie is allegedly inspired by real-life events from the 19th century wherein the Donner Party in California and Alfred Packer in Colorado had resorted to cannibalism after nearly starving to death in freezing conditions. The Road, 2009. While The Road is not a cannibal movie in the strictest sense, it does follow the cannibalistic survivors in a post-apocalyptic world. Inspired by Cormac McCarthy's novel, this movie is set in a world where America is utterly destroyed, and all survivors make their way to the sea in the hopes that it will hold some solution to their problems. After all the crops fail and the vegetation starts dying, the movie's main leads, the boy and the man, are a father-son duo who decide to go to the sea alongside other survivors. We see that some of these survivors have resorted to feeding on other human beings out of dire necessity, while the others still scramble to find canned goods and resort to violence to obtain them. Trouble Every Day, 2001. Directed by Claire Denis, Trouble Every Day is unlike any other run-of-the-mill cannibal horror film we have covered so far. While most tales of human consumption take place in dark rainforests or cursed mountains, this movie is set in Paris as Dr. Shane Brown arrives for his honeymoon with his bride, June. We soon learn that Dr. Brown traveled to Paris to be reunited with his lover, Corey, who is actually married to a neuroscientist named Dr. Leo Simonau. As things unravel, we learn that Dr. Leo often keeps his wife locked and that she has a tendency to indulge in cannibalism. Corey often breaks out of her room to seduce men and lure them into her trap before devouring them, while Dr. Leo appears at the scene and takes care of their bodies before escorting his wife back home. They seem to have everything figured out, but matters soon escalate as Dr. Shane Brown grows desperate to find Corey again. Trouble Every Day is a jarring love story as Dr. Brown soon reveals himself to be a cannibal as well, and the movie takes some intense turns as these individuals try to navigate their marriages and keep their libido under control. Blood Feast, 1963. Labeled as the first slasher movie ever, this genre-defining film follows the life of an unhinged Egyptian caterer called Fouad Ramses. As the movie picks up pace, we learn that the title of Blood Feast quite literally refers to a feast made out of human flesh. Ramses hoped to resurrect an Egyptian goddess named Ishtar by offering her this feast, and he decided to make a human stew by gathering several human body parts. Over the course of the film, we see him chop off a woman's limbs while she's taking a bath, smash a woman's skull to pull her brain out, and yank another woman's tongue out of her mouth. The sheer cruelty of these violent scenes might be too much for some viewers, and it's no surprise that the movie's director, Herschel Gordon Lewis, has earned a name as the Godfather of Gore. Blood Feast has quite a controversial release, as the masses had never witnessed a film that exploited violence and relied on the shock factor to such a great extent. Needless to say, this strategy did work and attract audiences, and Blood Feast has solidified itself as one of the most iconic slasher movies of all time. Marvelous Verdict. Ranging from the animalistic tribes of the Cannibal Holocaust to the human feast and bloodfest, every last movie plot in this video is a cinematic treat for fans of gory, gruesome cinema. While the cannibal horror genre might not be for the faint-hearted, hardcore horror fans will undoubtedly find these films to be right up their alley. And we hope that this video provided you with some recommendations for your next horror movie night too. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.